Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Hey friends, I'm back in San Francisco after 3 weeks away. I was in Colorado for Thanksgiving, then headed to Mexico where it was lovely and warm. I'm missing the tacos and the culture, the food there. It was such a great time away. If you've never been to either Tulum, Oaxaca City, or Mexico City, I highly recommend it. It was such a rich time away. Got to see some friends who live in Mexico City and had a few friends that were with me on the travels. I just really enjoyed it and hope that you're enjoying this holiday season, whatever you are up to. My guest today is Karen Rinaldi. She is the author of a book called It's Great to Suck at Something. She is also a book publisher, a surfer for the past 18 years, but guess what? She sucks at it. She is never going to be a professional. She is never going to get paid for it. And she's always going to suck at surfing. But even though Karen sucks at surfing, she feels compelled to surf as much as she can. She makes her life work around it. Surfing is her favorite way of playing. I really look at sucking at something and playing as really being interchangeable, which is why I wanted to talk to Karen about her book. Karen really wanted to explore this concept of why she felt so compelled to surf, even though it was something that she was never going to get good at. It kind of went against the grain of society telling her how she should spend her time. She is a middle-aged woman that is spending a high proportion of her time focused on this activity that she's never going to get good at, and it's never going to pay her. There's not a measurable outcome that's supposed to come of it. So in the book, she really explores this conundrum that she was trying to figure out for herself. In the book, Karen talks about why it's so important for us all to find something that we love, even if we suck at it, even if we're never going to get good at it, that we really just love the process of it no matter what. Karen and I talked about how by embracing something that she sucks at, she's learned so much about herself and about life, and how it's really helped her to be resilient in all parts of her life, including the time that she got breast cancer. So super inspiring stuff. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. Make sure you stay tuned until the end, where I'll share some little nuggets of wisdom that I pulled from our conversation. See you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Recess Life Podcast. I am so excited to be talking with Karen Rinaldi today. She is a publisher and author based out of New York City and also a surfer. We are going to talk all about those different identities and things that she does. First of all, Karen, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Louise. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try something a little different today. I've been ending a lot of my conversations with these fun rapid fire questions, but let's start with some of these questions just so people can get to know you a little bit, and we can just start off with some fun questions. So, okay. So when you were young, when you were growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up?
The first thing I wanted to be was a wildlife conservationist. So probably my earliest memories of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old was as a wildlife conservationist. I am so far from that, unfortunately. Yes, that was my first goal.
Wow, you loved animals. You still love animals, I bet.
I still love them, yeah.
Yeah. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, probably breathing underwater. As a surfer, that would be my superpower.
That makes sense.
Then I would
Aqua
be
woman.
afraid. Yes, Aqua woman. That would be it.
Yeah. All right. If you could say anything to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
I feel like if you said anything, knowing what I know now, to my 10-year-old self, if my 10-year-old self would have heard it, it kind of would have messed me up. So, in a way,
Hmm.
the way I feel even with my kids, which is kind of like stay out of the way. So I'm not sure I would tell my 10-year-old self anything.
Yeah. You
I
would
think,
let
I
her,
think she has to find her way.
yeah.
Yeah,
You would let her learn and figure it out on her own, which is the only way
yeah.
we learn.
It's the only way we learn. Yeah, I
Yeah.
keep my mouth. I think I keep my mouth shut.
Hmm. I like it. I think that's smart.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, who knows which way it could go, right? Could be better, it could be worse.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Exactly. All right. So you wrote a great book that I finished this weekend called It's Great to Suck at Something. And you've worked in publishing for a long time. And what really compelled you to write this book in the first place, coming from the publishing world? And I'm sure as a publisher, you've been inspired by other writers before. And
Oh,
what
yeah.
really compelled you to write your own book and take this upon yourself?
Um, I've I've been writing since I've been really young. So since I've way before I was in publishing. So I have been writing longer than I've been in publishing, but I wasn't that compelled to publish, I think. And then being in publishing oddly compels you less because it's not really the point. The point is if you want to write is to write. And you want to be read maybe, but you should be read when you're ready to be read. And so I wrote a novel before this that was published way after the fact. So that was turned into a movie first. It's kind of all backwards. So and the book came out, and then this book, I was trying to work out this idea that it's great to suck at something, right? So I found myself surfing at a very late age. At 40, I started, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's not a good time for anybody to start surfing, but whatever. There are those of us. I'm not the only one. I was so compelled by it, and it made me happier than anything else that I did. And it was the thing for which I showed the least talent. I suck at it. I still suck at it. I think about it all the time. I do it whenever I can. And I couldn't figure out how it was possible that the thing I was worst at, the thing that I struggled at, the thing that I looked least cool doing. I mean, a middle-aged woman kooking out on a surfboard is not pretty. It is, and yet I wanted to I just want to be in the water. So same. I mean, I think about it every day. It's kind of what drives me. And so that's about the last 18 years. And for the first 10 years, I did it. And I kept thinking, what is it about this thing? And so I started writing. About it. It's really as a way of puzzling it out. And I wrote anyway. So I started writing about surfing, and I started writing about the feelings that it evoked.
Yeah. It was the
And
conundrum you were trying to solve for yourself.
yeah, it was puzzling and it was kind of interesting. And I thought, what an odd thing. And I would say to myself, and I would say to people, like, it's so great. What do you suck at? So I would have this conversation with people, and they come into my office, for example, and I'd say, before we like, sort of like your questions, and I said, before we sit down, these are people I didn't know. And I'd say, I got to ask you one question. What do you suck at? And everybody would look at me like, are you mad? Like, why would I tell you what I sucked at? Who wants to suck at things? And people got very uncomfortable
Right.
about
It felt
it
so
with the question.
personal.
It was personal, but it was also, people were thinking, well, either I suck, people would say one of two things, which is I suck at everything. And I'm like, that's not true. That's just not true. And that was just an easy throwaway. Or people would say, I don't know. I don't want to suck at things. Like, why would I want to suck at something? So the conversation was always a little bit nervous making, but it was really, really interesting. And then what happened is eventually I wrote a piece for the New York Times, an opinion piece that was called It's Great to Suck at Something, and it was about surfing. And the moment that I articulated the idea in a more writerly way, as opposed to this way of trying to have a conversation about it, people came out of the woodwork. The piece went viral. People wanted to talk about, oh my God, I golf. I learn, I'm trying to learn Latin. I play guitar and sing badly. I bake. People just flooded with the New York Times and me with stories. And it was almost as if I had given permission in this public way of saying, you can come out about sucking at something that you love doing, it's okay. And that really started the conversation. But what I realized is that publicly, I had to go first. And at the same time that I wrote this piece, I posted a picture of me surfing, which, here's the thing, like people knew I surfed and they thought this is the thing, they kind of thought it was cool. And I wouldn't really disabuse them of it, even though I would say I'm really not good at it. They're like, oh yeah, I bet you're great. And I'm like, I'm really not good at it. But it doesn't matter because people have something in their head. And the only videos that non-surfers have in their head are professional surfers surfing. So you figure that's what it looks like. So I posted this video of me surfing, and I mean, I catch the wave, but I mean, it is not pretty, and I look like a middle-aged kook. I do catch the wave, but and I ride it, but it's not anything like people imagine.
I picture the Blue Crush movie, that movie with those beautiful women on the surfboards looking glamorous and their hair's all done. I'm like, that
not happens. That's
no. I don't think anyone looks like that, but
I mean, Steph Gilmore does, and those, all the amazing women on the tour, they look amazing surfing, but I mean, they're the pros. But anyway, I posted it, and I think it pushed me out in front of this idea that I'm really okay sucking at this. And it opened the door and opened the floodgates to have these conversations. So that's why I decided to write the book. It was sort of like an accumulation of me trying to figure it out, writing about it, then doing this piece and watching how sticky it was, and that people really wanted permission. I was like, and my agent called and said, that's your book. You got to write that book.
You struck a chord out there in the universe. When I was reading your book, I saw play and sucking at something just really even being able to be used interchangeably a lot, because when you are...
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
I think when you are doing something that you suck at but you love, that's playing. And that's what makes you stick with it. So
yeah, and also playing for playing's sake is something that only higher mammals do. And it's part of actually what makes us human, right? It is what makes us human is that idea that we can and we do play. And I think we have to remember that, even for kids, I think the applicability to kids is really important because kids are taught to like play to win, that thing, go big or go home, play to win, all that stuff that like gets in our, and these kids are learning this. You're going, no, just play to play. Playing's good. And at a certain point, kids kind of get educated in a way out of that. And that is heartbreaking. And as adults, we're kind of, we're totally screwed.
Yeah.
But I do think that people hear that and they go, they want to get back to it. So it's playing, it's sucking at something like playing where the stakes are low, but also playing with I always say it's with no goal or reward in mind. It's not playing to win. It's not, doing something with a goal so that I can be better at that. It's just to do something again in that very present moment. I mean, people say, oh, we want to live in the present. It's a really hard thing for us to do. And what I like to say is that it's like play with no ulterior motive, but to play. That's it.
Yep.
Like there's no goal. There's no goal or end game. And I think we should all be doing stuff that involves that.
100%. And the funny thing is, not having an ulterior motive, but it has positive consequences for your life anyway.
Well, yeah,
right, which is so fun.
But you can't do it to get for the ulterior motive. I always say, like, you can't game it. You can't game it. You can't hack it. You can't do any of that stuff. It's like if you play for the sheer joy of playing. Yes, I do think that there are benefits, but it's funny with my book and the whole suck at something thing. I try to prevent people from saying, but if I do this and I do it badly and I suck at it and I accept that I suck at it, that's going to make me better at X, Y, and Z. And I said, no, the idea is to let go of that equation, right? Let go of that transaction. If I do this, I will get that. Yeah. If I do this, I will do this. That's the end of it. Stops right there. So it's hard. It's hard for us, though.
Oh, it's so hard.
Really hard.
Because everything in our life is transactional. Everything in society is so
Everything is
transactional,
transactional. Yep, keyword, keyword.
right? Oh, getting out of that idea that we have to do X to get Y in everything in our life. It's so hard to
Totally.
get out of that mentality. But
But it's killing. I think it's crushing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is so interesting that it was a conundrum that you were trying to work out for yourself because when you think about it logically, why would we spend time doing something that we are not, going to get good at, quote unquote, we're not going to be a professional at, and yet
Right.
you are still drawn to do it. And we all can think of something where we feel that way about. And so,
Within ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
If
within
we let
ourselves
ourselves. Yeah.
if we let ourselves. And
Right.
logically, it doesn't make sense. We should only be doing things that have a specific outcome or that we are good at. And so, but yet something, if we allow ourselves, we are compelled to do certain things. And so that was the question you decided to answer. And why do you think that conundrum exists in the first place?
Well, I mean, I'm not a social psychologist and I don't know. I think part of it I mean, I think it's our culture. I think our culture drives us in all of the messages that we get, which is if you buy this car, you'll be, seen as successful. If you wear these clothes, if you wear that makeup, if you use this, eye cream, if whatever it is, if you buy this thing, you will have arrived. So I think it's culturally, I think we're sold a bunch of crap. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is that if you're going to look, that would be the some of the external influences. I think the internal influences are this kind of myth of perfectionism that a lot of people carry around with them, right? So the myth goes something like this. Like we hear this all the time. We hear people say this. If I'm such a perfectionist that, fill in the blank. Usually, if you hear that, next time you hear yourself or somebody else saying it, I'm such a perfectionist that, it usually is an excuse for why someone has not done something, is not doing it well enough.
Why they're procrastinating.
Procrastinating, exactly. When I hear that, I hear fear, right? It's just another way of saying, I'm afraid. And there's something, if you look to the studies, I mean, there are, you can go back to, an Alfred Adler, sort of, an early psychologist studied this, and, and existentialists have studied it, and the Stoics have studied it. It's like, it could be our inner draw, to get close to the divine, right? You want to be as close to God, whatever your concept of God is perfection, right? So we're drawn to that. So that's probably a striving that is very natural. I mean, if we didn't strive, we would never learn to walk or talk or feed ourselves or, get up and go to work in the morning. But what happens is it gets bastardized, and then there's an abnormal striving for perfection. And that equation goes something like, if I am not perfect, then I am not worthy of love. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is something that we don't even know we're thinking. And I think what it does is it stops us, because we really you want to be loved. You want to be, and this goes into some child psychology as well. I mean, again, there are scientists who have studied this. I kind of look at it just in an experiential way, right? In the way that we kind of live our lives. And you go, because it's that idea that this is one of the greatest benefits of sucking at something and accepting it about yourself, is that when you see people trying to do something and struggling, right? Struggling to do X, Y, or Z, dancing like a kook on the dance floor, surfing like a kook, skateboarding like a kook, playing a musical instrument really badly, singing at the top of their lungs, but, out of tune. We tend to get uncomfortable and stuff, or people can get uncomfortable. And when you really allow yourself to be able to do something, not well, not perfectly, you look at those people and you fall in love with them. You really do. Your heart opens up and you think, they're doing it. They're trying. One of my favorite things in the world in New York City is to when you're walking down the streets in New York City and people have headphones on. And what's interesting in New York is that you hear a lot of people singing who have beautiful voices because they're singers and actors. It's New York. But you hear just as many who are just singing out loud, who can't carry a tune. And that always makes my day brighter. Not because I think they're funny or making fun of them. I love them. I love that person because I'm thinking, you're just, it's not the point is not whether or not you can do it well.
No.
The point is that you're just doing it. So I feel like the striving for perfection becomes a pathology. And listen, we have to strive to be good at what we do professionally. We have to strive to be good partners, and we should be good friends and good parents and all those things. But I'm saying if you choose one thing in your life that you love to do and that's important to you, and you forgive yourself for sucking at it, you let go of the lie that perfectionism is, because frankly, none of us will ever be perfect. Even the Olympic athletes who attain a moment of perfection, say on a slope or off the diving board or, curling. I don't know what that would be, but somebody knows what that is. It's not always, right? That perfection doesn't happen all the time. So it's like no one can get there. So I have a big instinct to kind of bust this myth.
Yeah. And by practicing that forgiveness, you also learn that you are still worthy of love if you are not perfect. And that's the thing I think that, right?
In a way more, because guess what? We are our beautiful and perfect selves. I mean, that's what's beautiful about us, is that we're flawed.
Right.
And it seems so easy, but it's not. And it gets, like I said, it gets complicated. It gets complicated by culture. It gets complicated by also our goal-driven lives. That equation that we were talking about earlier, which is the transactional nature of it, is like, if I do this, I will get that. And then as soon as you stop that, you're going, if I do this, I am doing it. If I, it's what I could say, it's like the difference between just being instead of becoming, or just doing instead of getting. Be and do, don't become and get. Don't think about, what if I am this now, then I'm going to become a famous writer. If I write now, I will. Well, no, if I am writing, I am writing. That's it. That's all you get. You don't get anything else. Maybe you'll publish. Maybe your book will stick. Maybe people will come to know you. Maybe not. That's not the point.
Maybe. Right. Exactly. That's not the point. And so how do you pick what you should strive for? Because there are so many things to suck at. And in particular, maybe you can share it with your story around how you picked surfing as the thing that you want to suck at for the rest of your life. How did you come around to that?
How did I come to that? That's a good question, because I've done a lot of different things, right? So I've I've boxed and bicycling and horseback riding and a lot of different things. And I love them all. Surfing was the hardest thing for me, which is weird, which is that I stuck with it. So it probably goes back to some very old inspirations, where I'm happiest when I'm by the ocean, but have always been terrified to be in it. So I'm compelled by the ocean, and as compelled as I am that afraid. And then I had these recurring dreams and nightmares growing up, which were about big waves, which I still have, which is crazy because I'm 58 years old. So I've had these dreams for 50 years or more, that I can remember for 50 years. Maybe I had them even younger. And it was the dream and the nightmare were very similar, except in one I'm calm and it's a beautiful dream, and in one I'm going to die. And when I'm in the ocean, and I'm very, very afraid of the ocean, and I also love the ocean more than any other environment that I could possibly be in. So this tension kept me out of the ocean for a lot of my life. But I really wanted to learn to surf. You couldn't surf unless you're going to paddle out. So I finally thought, I can't turn 40 and never having done this. I have to do it. I have to break through this fear, and I have to try it. And then I can just move on. And something else happened. I tried it, and it's like a light went off in my head. It was so powerful. And I thought, I have to do this. But I have to get over my fear every time. Every time I paddle out, I still have to get over it. So I feel like that tension is part of it, is that it's so yeah, I'm confronted with my fears, my demons on one hand. On the other hand, listen, I get a huge adrenaline and dopamine rush. I mean, I'm getting all that
Yeah.
stuff too
Both
because it's all
sides.
stuff, all of it, right? Um, so it's, I feel like surfing for me was embedded somehow, the ocean and being in the ocean and understanding her and accepting how afraid I was of her, and then surrendering the control that I want to have in every other situation. I mean, I'm a control freak. A lot of us are. When you're in the ocean, you cannot be a control freak. You just can't. You can't. You have to surrender to it. So I think I've been fighting demons with it. Now, I don't think that your sucking at something thing has to be so heavy, because actually when I'm surfing, I'm not thinking any of these things. When I'm surfing, I'm just like in the water. I'm aware. I'm looking around. I'm happy, 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 happy. And then, if something happens that scares me, then I get scared and then I recover, and then I'm happy again. But I think when people ask me how you find something, I always say, there's a couple of questions you can ask yourself. When you watch somebody doing something, if it's standing on a stage and doing improv or singing, like singing to me would be like like getting on stage and just singing your heart out, like would be one of the great things in the world to do. It's like, so I'm saying do it. If you look at somebody at a potter's wheel and you watch it, you think, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. As soon as you say to yourself, oh, I wish I could do that, my thing is, you can. You can. It doesn't mean you're going to be good at it, right? Okay, you see somebody, jumping a high steeple on a horse, you're going to have to lead up to it. But if getting on the back of a horse is the thing you said, oh, I wish I could do that, I mean, that's expensive and it's hard. So there are barriers to entry, I understand. But there are ways you can do things, usually by either, finding, you can always find a way. It didn't make sense that I would surf at 40 either. And it just was something that I found myself not only going back to, but I changed my entire life to be able to do it, which is crazy.
Oh, I love that.
To do something I'm really bad at.
Right.
So I changed my life so I could do something that I'm really bad at. And I knew I would never get good.
Yep.
I don't
And
care.
you were 40 years old and you don't live by the beach, and there's all these logical reasons why it's something that you shouldn't be doing, but yet there was something primal that was pulling you towards it, and you couldn't go on another day without having experienced it.
Well, to experience it, and then it clicked, and then I had that click aha moment. I thought, okay, this is a thing I want to be doing. But I do think so. People can try different things. I think a lot of people want to try musical instruments, and they don't. Dance is a lot. Like people, so many people want to dance, and they're so afraid to dance. I have heard so many stories of people who started dancing since these conversations that we have, and I'm just so happy. I'm like, yes, go dance. Or sing. I have a friend who started improv, from these conversations. I have my sister started doing watercolors and painting. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like,
who are you?
But this is it, though. People find,
Yeah.
and instead of stopping themselves and saying, oh, I can't start now because I'll never be good at it, you take that part out. I'll never be good at it. So?
So what?
So what?
Yep. And I have my own personal story with dance.
What is this?
So I grew up being stunned by anything that was related to singing or dancing, pop stars. I was just so enthralled by anyone who was in entertainment, and my family didn't have money growing up to send me to dance classes. So I was never able to take a dance class. And when I was in college, I took dance classes as part of my extracurricular activity, or my elective classes, because you have to take a certain amount of electives, right? And you have to pay for them anyway. So I would roll them into my curriculum. But after I graduated college, I didn't have that opportunity anymore to continue to take classes at college. And I graduated and felt like, oh, I'm at this point 22. What's the point in going to a dance class? And there was a clicking moment for me. I was playing a game with some friends, and we were playing one of those games where you pull cards and ask questions. And one of the questions was, if you only had a year to live, what would you do? And I said,
such a good question.
Yeah.
Right?
And I said, I would take a dance class every week. And my friends were like, well, why aren't you doing that now? I was like, well, I'm never going to be like a professional or anything. They're like, wait, why does that matter? And I was like, you're right. And it clicked. And so I started taking dance classes consistently when I was 23 years old. And I am by no means great at it. There are days in classes where we have to break up into little groups and perform for everyone else in the class, and I will forget things and freeze and beat myself up, but that's okay. I love it. I love the
Oh, it's
process of
so
it.
good.
So yeah, I totally hear you on all this. And I
So,
think we all have a story like that in some way in ourselves.
and I think that even if we don't have it, I think that if you give yourself permission to do it, I think you could find yourself doing, one of the, whatever it is, people find themselves in these amazing situations and going, they're the best stories, by the way. They are the best. I just have to recount one of the best stories I heard on one of the radio shows that I did, where it was about this woman who started playing softball. Like she had kids, career, her kids grew up. She started playing softball like in her 50s or something. She was so bad at it, but she'd go out every week and she joined the team, and they allowed her to be part of the team. They were very inviting. And one day, it's so good. One day she caught a fly ball. I think it was a fly ball. She caught a fly ball in the outfield for the first time. And both teams cheered. Even the side who got called out, they all cheered for her. And that just made me cry when I heard the story. I was like, That is the best story. That's what it's about. That is what it's about.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like second awakenings when I hear stories like this.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a small thing. It's such a small, beautiful thing, but it's, we can have that, and that community, and that comes back to one of the key points about this is that when you do, you could suck at something alone. You could play guitar in your room, or, do crossword puzzles and love them and suck at them. There are a lot of things you can do alone, but a lot of the things that we do that we suck at would, like, you go to dance class, so there's a community of people, and to enter a community without fear, with great humility, and to hold on to that humility and watch the kindness of strangers and watch the kindness of people, and, who help you and who, don't not love you because you're not good at it. And to invite their kindness. It's like you allow for their kindness and their patience. It's an amazing gift that you get back. And I find, because being out in the lineup, again, I'm middle-aged, I'm a woman. There's, not that there depending on where you're surfing, sometimes there are women, sometimes. In New Jersey, there are not a lot of women, but in Costa Rica, where I go, there are a lot of women. But I'm annoying in the lineup. I'm a little bit annoying. I miss a lot of the ways I go for it. I can get in the way and stuff. And I have found the greatest kindnesses from people. And you're exposed. You're totally exposed. People know that you suck. They know you're out there. But like when I've been in trouble, people come and help. When I need help, they come and help. It's like mostly, and every once in a while, somebody's really mean. There's every once in a while, you'll find that person who is unkind. And that's okay too, because you've built the resilience and because you know that mostly the community is actually more patient than you think they're going to be, as long as you're not being foolish and putting people in trouble. People who say they're going to, I've watched people surf and have no respect for the other people in the lineup, and
Sure.
You've got to know your place.
Yep.
So I always say, like, know your place and what you're sucking at.
Sure.
Don't be clueless, because that's your responsibility, is not being clueless. But you don't have to be talented, but don't be clueless, because that's just ignorance, and that's not good.
It could be so easy to never try at all and to make up a story in your head around, oh, if I go to a dance class, everyone's going to laugh at me. Or if I go out in the water, people are going to plow me over with their surfboards. And it would be such a convenient excuse to never start, right?
Good. Yep. So good.
So instead, it's like, why don't you open yourself up? Why don't you test that out a little bit first to see if that's even true? And then we'll talk.
Exactly. And I think it's because people are scared, and I understand why they're scared. I get it. It's scary. Yeah. It's scary. But once you do it, then you realize, oh, you don't die. You don't die of humiliation. You know what I mean? We're terrified of being humiliated, but that feeling comes from inside, right? Yep. Those feelings come from inside.
Yep.
And
exactly.
they're monsters, but they're good monsters to battle because on the other side of it is so much good stuff is waiting.
Totally. And
Yeah.
what really struck me about your book was really looking at sucking at something as a mechanism or a tool to be able to experience these deeper levels of humanity in ourselves and in others, and
Yeah.
just being able to experience things like self-compassion,
Oh yeah.
gratitude, and the strength and
Yeah.
vulnerability, and using
Yeah.
sucking at something as a mechanism to experience all of that. And because
Yeah.
again, it would be so easy to just sit in our rooms by ourselves and to never experience any of these things because we are not putting ourselves out there, because we are not putting ourselves in
Yeah.
positions to experience those qualities in life. And
Right.
aren't those isn't that what life is all about? To be able to experience those deeper amounts of self-love, self-compassion, connection with others, and growth
Totally.
and learning. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
You
Oh
got it.
yeah.
So
um
good.
I would love to talk a little bit about the neuroplasticity of the brain, and how sucking at something can really help change our the way we craft stories in our head. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
probably not explaining it as well as you can, but there was one part where you were talking about how by sucking at something, we really have the opportunity to practice the way we frame stories, the way we frame ourselves. And I'll give an example that came to mind when I was reading that
Hmm.
particular part. I train in this movement. It's called movement culture, and we will learn everything from handstands to balancing to strength training. And the some really challenging things are the balancing for me, and
Yeah.
we have to balance on these little rails, and then we have to interact with a partner by balancing on a rail and throwing things to each other, and
That's hard.
it's really hard.
That's really
And
hard.
before I will do this particular exercise with a partner, there's this great guy in my class named Nate. Shout out to Nate. I go to him and I say, "Oh, before we start this, I'm just really horrible at this, so please be ready." And he looks at me and he'll say, "No, I am learning to become better at this particular skill." He's like, "That's what you should be telling yourself instead." And
Right.
and just even that little flip is
Right.
big. And if I wasn't doing something that I suck at to begin with, I wouldn't have the opportunity to even reframe that story.
Exactly. And it's also, it's like they're all different sides. It's all different like facets of the same thing. He's saying, I'm not, I'm not terrible at this. I'm trying to get better. And there's definitely that nuance. And people say, what if you suck at something? Like, aren't you going to get better? And I'm like, yeah, if you do something regularly, I mean, I can surf. I can paddle into, catch, and ride the face of a wave, and I can kick out the back. I can do that. I don't do it a lot. I don't do it well. The conditions have to be good, but I definitely can do it, right? And I couldn't do it when I first started. So, yeah, I can surf. So I got better. Do I still suck at it? Yeah, now I do, but that's okay too. But the idea is not to continue. The idea is not to be bad at something. The idea is to condition yourself for saying that two things, which is I'm not doing this so that I can get the accolades that people can tell me, oh, look, you can really do this. You're not doing it for any kind of feedback. You're doing it because the experience of being in the present and doing that thing is enough.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. Whether you're good at it or bad at it, whether you succeed, whether I catch that wave or if I don't catch that wave. I can have a whole session where I'm sitting in the ocean and I miss every wave I go for, or I fall off of the wave, or I kook out on it, or I wipe out, or something happens and I don't have a good ride. I've still had a surf session. A friend of mine said, is it still called surfing if you don't catch a wave? And I was like, it's like a koan, right? It's such a great line. So the idea is the neuroplasticity, and I'm not a neuroscientist or, a neuropsychologist, but the idea is that stories, framing a story. So the framing the story is not that I suck. It's like, it's okay if I suck at something. It's okay. I don't get that, that fear, that, being humiliated, the shame attached to it. And that if you can get accustomed to being imperfect, if you can get accustomed to trying and failing, and then trying and sometimes succeeding, but not expecting that success. Just trying, like, living in the present, living in the present, living in the present. There is a kind of knock-on effect later on, because it's not that it's going to make you better at, say, your job. It's not going to do that. What it does do is that by not hating yourself, by forgiving yourself for being less than perfect, for taking that mean critic in your head, that self-critic that is brutal, it beats the crap out of us, to tone that down or to shut that voice off, right? Which is something you have to do. I have to do it all the time when I'm surfing. I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to do it, or else I can't do it, because otherwise it won't be fun. Then I would have a miserable experience instead of having, really basically the most incredible experience. When I suck at the things that matter, which I do sometimes, because we all do, I'm a really good cook. I cook all the time. Sometimes I make food that just sucks. I don't know what happens. It's like something doesn't go right. And instead of like freaking out and thinking, oh my God, how could I do that? I've been cooking for 40 years. I'm going, yeah, well, that sucked. Okay. It doesn't touch me. Or when I screw up at work, I will still screw up at work. I've been doing it for 30 something years. It happens. Everyone in the world messes up at work. Instead of that terror that happens, like, oh my God, I made a mistake. I made a wrong decision. I did the wrong thing. You kind of catch yourself and you go, oh yeah, I know what this feels like. It's okay. I'm just human. I'm just going to go fix the thing that I screwed up, instead of throwing somebody else under the bus or blaming the blah-de-blah, or, running and hiding from it. I mean, I'm a manager too. So I see people do all sorts of messed up stuff when they make a mistake. I love the people who go, yep, I screwed that up. And I go, yeah, all right, what are we going to do about it? Let's fix it. Let's fix it together.
Yep. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, but also it makes you a better manager. It makes you a better employee. It makes you a better everything. If you can actually improv and get rid of that terrible spin you get in your head, and, about having screwed something up. You're going, oh yeah, I just sucked at that. Oh, I know what this feels like. It's cool. Because that story is not a frame of, now I am a total failure in everything. It's like, yeah, sometimes I can mess up. And so the story is not a scary story anymore. It's just another story. Doesn't have to crush you. And you can learn from it and you can move on to the next thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's practicing that forgiveness and that quieting of that mean critic in a lower stakes environment, really, right? Where
exactly
it's okay if I didn't hit that dance move in class, because no one died.
Because it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, listen, I think the why I always say it's great to suck at something where the stakes are low, right? The stakes, nobody needs you to dance well, right? Nobody needs me to surf well, except I need to be safe. So I need those rules. But as far as surfing beautifully or surfing well, I don't need to do it. Nobody needs me to do it. And there's so much freedom, right? There's so much freedom, and that not needing to succeed. And that's the other thing that you experience, is like, it's total freedom. I mean, you don't have that freedom in a lot of what we do, or we don't give ourselves that freedom. Practicing that is like, when I go out there and I'm out in the water, I just feel like I'm completely free of all expectation. I'm so bad at it that nobody really even asks me anything of it, right? When you're good at something, people always want something, right? It's like they want help, they want this, they want that. It's like, can't ask me because I'm really bad at this. So there's a kind of lightness about it, and there's a freedom there that I think we don't give ourselves that often.
Because it's so easy to fill our time and fill our lives with the things that people expect of us, or that society says that we're supposed to do. And we could easily fill 24 hours in a day with all of that, right? And
easily. We do.
We easily do.
We do. Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time doing that.
Right.
So then when you go and you're doing something, when you're dancing, like, nobody's calling you, nobody's saying, you're just, I'm dancing right now. That's all I'm doing. I gotta pay attention, because I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna, and What an awesome feeling that is.
Something that you have to be fully present at, right? That no one else can touch you in that moment. And
Yes. Yeah.
giving ourselves that permission to be that present is hard, but it's important.
But we can learn it and we can keep learning it. And I think that again, this idea of doing something, playing, or the idea of playing or doing something you suck at or whatever, listen, I think, this idea of sucking at something is like, you might find that you've got an incredible aptitude for something that you wouldn't have tried in the first place because you were afraid of failing. And then who knows? Like I could have been a gifted surfer. I'm not, but I mean, I could have found that out too. Well, I was old, but there are people who started my age who are much better than me. I mean, I know a whole population of people who started late, and a lot of them are better than I am. But like, how would you
So
know
what?
if you try? Well, I was going to say, but how would you even know where you're going to land in that? Because until you try. So I think a lot of people don't try to begin with, and that's sad. That makes me sad when people say, "Oh, I've always wanted to play guitar, but oh, it's too late." No, it's just
No.
not. There is no too late. There's no too late.
Absolutely not. There's this funny meme that I shared last week on Instagram around it's two lines, and one is art perception and one's reality. And the line for perception says, when we think it's too late, and it's like in the middle of the line, and the line is the length of our life. It's like in the middle. We think it's too late when we're at the middle. And then the one that's reality, the end ends with death, and it's like reality is that's when it's too late. Death.
Yeah, exactly.
But before then, you're
So
fine.
then anything goes. It reminds me of somebody a tattooist once told me that I said, tell me about the most interesting tattoo that you'd ever given or something. And he said, oh, I tattooed this woman who was like 85 years old. And I said, she came in and she wanted a tattoo. And he said, and she didn't have any tattoos. And he said, why now? Why do you, want a tattoo now? And she said, my husband hated tattoos. And he just died. So now I'm getting one. And I just thought, that's so awesome. So she always wanted one. She was going to get that tattoo. And it's like, he's dead. I'm going to go get it. And I thought, this woman's in her 80s. And I thought, that is a beautiful story.
I love it.
That's never saying it's too late.
There you go.
Yes, it's too late when you're dead. Exactly.
Exactly. Before that, anything goes.
Anything goes. Yeah.
Yes.
So true.
This is kind of a good segue. So you experienced breast cancer.
Breast cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is something that, I imagine was super scary. And I could see it going both ways for people. I
Yeah.
have because I've experienced something that is so close to death. Now I need to be extra careful with my life. I need to play everything, play it safe with everything now for the rest of my life. I got this second chance, so to speak.
Yeah.
But you got back out on the surfboard. What was your framing and your thought process around that?
Two things I think happened. One was when I first got diagnosed, I was pissed. I was not happy. I kind of thought, like, really? Like, this is not I wasn't expecting it. It's not my family. Not that you ever expect to get cancer, but it's just one of those things that kind of throws you. And I found myself kind of a little angry is the word for it. Angry at my body, kind of like annoyed in so many ways, and thinking, oh my God, like I don't have time for this, which is ridiculous. And then, and I thought, and so as I was resisting it, because you're kind of, but you can't resist cancer. You kind of go up. I have to figure out what to do now. And I decided to reframe it. And I think this is part of the suck at something thing. I decided to reframe it as like an adventure. And I say in my book, it's like it's not a choose your own adventure. It's it chose you adventure. Like you're going on this adventure, whether you want it or not. And I thought, oh, if I frame it as an adventure that I wouldn't have chosen, but that has chosen me, I'm going to have to just go along. So I'm going to learn a lot of new things. I'm going to see kind of what I'm made out of. That was one thing. And the other thing was that I realized in the course of, it was a year that went not well. And I'm fine. I mean, you don't really know what breast cancer, but it was 6 years ago, or I got diagnosed 7 years ago. when went to see my doctors, and so I had surgery, and then I had another surgery, and then I had chemo, and then the chemo, I had to go back and have the second round of chemo, and then I had a mastectomy. So it was like a year of just horrible things. And every time I kept saying to my doctors, like, when can I get back in the water? And they were they thought I was hilarious. They're like, can you? And I'm just like, just whatever you're doing, you have to seal me up well enough so that I can get back in the water. And they're like, I think you need to wait. I'm like, I'm not going to wait. I'm not waiting. That's not what I'm doing. I need to surf. I need to be in the ocean. Now, I call it surfing through chemo, which was an idea. It was very hard to do that because I was really sick. But that idea that what I wanted to do more than anything, besides, stay alive because of my children, that was the first thing, without a doubt. But the second thing was to surf. And I thought, I want to get better so I could go surf again. And I was like, I want to go do the thing that I'm worst at. Like, I want to live so I can go do the thing I'm worst at, not so I can go back and do the thing that I'm best at, my job or whatever. That wasn't what was pulling me. It was like, I need to get healthy because I need to be able to go back in the water. And I was in the water every chance I got, in spite of how bad I felt and how much it hurt and how at risk I was. And by the way, I had to start all the way at the bottom again. I mean, I literally got to a certain level and then I had to go back down and start from the beginning. And I could have, my fear was, what if this means I don't surf anymore? And that broke my heart. And I thought, well, that's my choice, right? I mean, if I don't surf anymore, that's because I chose not to surf anymore. So screw that. I'm going to make myself do this. And I started all over again. And it took me a couple of years to get back to where I was. Yeah. But it was kind of awesome because then you're just going like, I don't know if I could curse, but I would just say like, fuck cancer. I'm going to go do this. And that, of course, that was a feedback loop that was positive, as opposed to saying it beat me. I'm like, no. And it was hard because the whole body was compromised. My range of motion was messed up. I mean, it's like all these things. I got used to it, actually. I mean, I worked around it. I mean, Bethany Hamilton surfs with one arm. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, she said when she was 13 and got her arm bit off by a tiger shark in Hawaii, her first thing was, when can I get back in the water and surf again? I remember that. She was 13 years old, and I thought, yeah, that's the right way to think about it. That makes sense to me. I mean, and she's Bethany Hamilton, and I'm not. But it doesn't matter because it's the idea. It's just you got to get out there. So yeah. So the way that breast cancer worked, it scared me first because I thought it would prohibit me for either sickness or desire or fear. And I pushed through those things. And probably it's what made me heal quicker. In a way, it's probably because I pushed through that.
Yeah. The fact that you said you framed it as an adventure, which is incredible, first of all. And I think probably I would guess that because you had practiced reframing so much in your practice of surfing, this was the ultimate test at
that. Talk about sucking at something. It's like sucking at like being healthy. You're like, oh my God, I really suck at this. Like this is not what I was supposed to suck at. Like I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm all that stuff. And then you go, wait, what story am I telling? And I go, right, I'm going to go on an adventure. And it actually became, I would, instead of taking the, escalator up the stairs and, because I would force myself during chemo to walk to work. And then I would force myself, if I got on a subway, to walk up the stairs. And I remember thinking, I felt like such crap. And I remember thinking, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk to chemo. I'm going to walk back from chemo. I'm going to push myself to do this because I don't want to give into it. And, there was a time when I was lying on the couch and practically dead because it was a year later and everything had gone wrong. But there I was. And I remember thinking, oh, so this is what it feels like to die. And I felt, this is weird, but I felt weirdly blessed because I thought, well, I'm on my couch. I've had treatment. I have my family around me. The worst thing that happens is that you die. And then you think, well, if you could reframe that, you're good. You're good. And that's sort of got me to that place. So yeah, yeah. So
Oh my
it was
gosh.
good. It was an amazing experience. You
Oh
know,
my goodness.
did Gilda Radner say cancer would be the best thing that happened to you if it didn't kill you? I think that's a Gilda Radner said, which I think
Right.
it's a great line.
Oh,
So it's like I don't know, it's around the corner. It'll creep up again. Usually, people who get cancer get recurrences, and this happens. And I'm going, I'm just going to keep surfing and keep having an adventure, and just
yeah.
when it happens, it happens.
And something like that could happen to any of us, and maybe not cancer, but anything
Well,
traumatic or
exactly.
disastrous, right?
And we all go through some kind of trauma, and we're all going to die.
Hmm.
And then you kind of go, okay, but besides that,
Yeah.
things are good.
We're all going to have to practice reframing at some point, and you don't want the traumatic, serious experience to be the one time you have to, but
It, it will
you
be.
want to have practiced reframing before that happens and
Yeah.
practice
Yes, you do.
storytelling,
Yes, absolutely. No, that's
right?
a good way of putting it. Absolutely. It's a practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think because you wanted to get back to surfing because it's the thing that made you feel the most alive, which cancer threatened to take
Does
that
not.
away.
Yeah, yeah, it threatens that. Yeah, it does threaten that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, oh wow. I'm like emotional just talking to you about that. But that's
Yeah.
incredible, and I think yeah, anyone who has experienced something traumatic or life threatening could stand to take a note from you and how you did that. So
Well, I hope I can do it again the next time. So I don't count on it, but yeah, you hope it's there
oh,
when you need it.
for sure. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Are you working on any upcoming projects? Are you working on a second book, or what are you really excited about right now?
I'm not sure what I'm going to write next. I'm just, the yeah, the book brought me to some interesting places that I wasn't like everything else, like cancer, like surfing. Writing this book brought me to some really interesting places that I wasn't expecting it to take me to. So I don't know. I won't get into that now, but I'm definitely in a different headspace than I was before the book. I kept saying that as I was writing the book, I kept bumping into God, and I'm a lapsed Catholic,
Hmm.
and religion, institutionalized religion, makes me just crazy because it's just
Yep.
there's a lot of bad that can come out of that. However, there is something in our search for something else, and you can call it spiritual searching or whatever it is. I did not expect to keep bumping into it when I was doing research for the book. I wasn't going there, but every path I found, whether it was through poets or philosophers or scientists or physicists or theology, every path led to a question of the divine. And that kind of blew my mind. I don't know why I had to be in my 50s to realize that that's where all paths go. I was like, what is that about? So that threw me. And I thought, all right, so now I'm just doing a lot of thinking and studying, and I don't know what that means. I just think I couldn't have
Hmm.
predicted this at all because I was really just having fun and trying to figure out why do I surf? Why great to suck at something? But if you at the end of the book, I mean, you see there's some of it in the book. There's my God wave, one of
Yep.
my chapters is called my God wave, and that really was when things started shifting for me, and I
Hmm.
started thinking, oh, there's something in this I think I'm going to have to pay attention to. So I'm paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I'm writing, that's where I'm writing, but it'll take, I don't have any goal. I don't know when I write, I don't have any goal when I write. I actually don't, which is weird, but if I had put a goal on it, I'll stop.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Just
I
like what
kind
we
of,
were saying about doing something for a specific outcome or transaction. And
yeah,
yeah.
when people ask me how to get published, I always say that's the wrong question. Ask me a different question because
Yeah.
how I get published is not, I mean, I'm a publisher, but it's like, that's not the point.
Hmm. Yeah. I loved that part in the book where you were talking about how you went to that church in Rome and how you just stood there just with this overwhelming, you were just filled with this sense of spirit, love, and
That
something.
oceanic feeling is
Yeah.
is that the
Hmm.
oceanic feeling, which is a kind of unus mundus. It's when you kind of feel it. It's hard to feel that, but when you feel it, it's, I wasn't expecting, that was the other thing. I was not expecting it at all. It's
Yeah.
not what I thought was going to happen. I was like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that? And you kind of walk away. You're kind of like, you've shifted a little bit. And you're going, oh, there's a little shift. Then you go back to your same old crap.
Of
But
course.
you do feel those moments. And
Hmm.
so it's not that I'm looking for them, but I'm paying attention. And what you find actually is that there are those moments every day. Those moments happen every day. It's just whether or not we're keyed into them. And they could be just, walking down the street in New York. It's like if I, instead of just being, in this way, if I just kind of look out and you watch people, there's so many beautiful moments that you can see all the time. It's incredible. So that moment that I had in Rome and the moment that I had in the water, what I found and what I come to realize is that those moments are around us all the time.
Yeah.
And that was a gift that this book gave me that I was not expecting. I don't know how and why, but that's what happened. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think sucking at something has in relation to that feeling, that sense of awe, connection, and those beautiful moments that we are, I think we're all seeking.
Yeah, what is that sucking at something? I think well, I think the only way that you can feel awe and genuine love is to lose yourself, the self, because the self is a construct. It's your ego. I mean, it gets heavy, but what is the connection is that when I let go of the critic in my head, when I stop thinking that everything is about me and how I'm doing and whether I'm doing it well or better, that kind of, the default mode network that is all about you, me, 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 right? If you can turn that off, once you do, and you get rid of you can't get rid of this. I mean, we can't get rid of the self for long,
Yeah.
right? But when you have those moments when you do, that is when you have access to some kind of divine experience. And again, it took me writing this book to get to that point. I did not make that connection never would have been made. But it's like, it's a relief from the self. And we all want a relief from that. We don't, even if we don't know it, that's what we want. Because
Yeah.
it's exhausting.
Oh my gosh, performing and
Yeah.
posturing all the time and
It's
creating those
noisy.
walls and those layers that we use that we put up because we think it's going to protect us or that people will love us more the more perfect we are, and it's all not true.
All not true. But how do because we're self-referential, right? So, again, that is partly our brains. It's what our brains do. We're blessed and cursed to be conscious creatures, and that really messes us up. So we're, at the best moments, we're trying to pull away from that. And so I try to get there as much as I can, but it's hard.
Oh,
It's hard.
right.
Yeah, but you could try. You could try, and you can lose yourself. I think you lose yourself in the dance. I lose myself if I'm walking down the street and I stop doing that thing where the loop goes inside, and I just go, just like you just watch, and then again, what you see is stunning, and sometimes heartbreaking, and sometimes it's something else, but it's not about you. And then it's a great relief when you feel it. And it also opens up to these amazing moments that you kind of go like, oh, I'm having a shitty day. And then you kind of go, oh, what if I just stop thinking about my shitty day and I just open my eyes to something, or turn and say something to a passerby or something. And all of a sudden, bam, like you can get out of that framework. Doesn't mean you're not going to flip right back to it, but
Of course.
it's practice. It's like we said with everything else. It's a practice. It's a kind of practice.
The work of our lives for the rest of our lives.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Yep. Keep
Yeah. Oh,
dancing.
yes. And you keep surfing, Karen, forever
I
and
will.
ever.
I
Oh,
will.
my
All
gosh.
right.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was
Thanks
so
for being very
wonderful.
nice.
Oh, so glad to
Thank
meet you. That was Karen Rinaldi, author, publisher, surfer extraordinaire. I really enjoyed that conversation with Karen, and I was unexpectedly super inspired by her story. I don't think I would have ever connected sucking at something and play and resilience, and the way she experienced it, at least, as being connected, especially with her story of experiencing breast cancer. So I hope you learned a thing or two. I certainly did. Let's get into some of those nuggets of wisdom that we can learn from the conversation. Number 1, it's not about how good you are at something, but it's about your approach, your mindset, and the way you reframe stories. So when we are not perfect at something, when we are not outright super competent at it, it is so easy to be mean to ourselves. It is so easy to beat ourselves up and to say, oh, I suck and I'm just going to quit. But by sucking at something, you are actually giving yourself the opportunity to practice self-compassion and forgiveness on yourself for not being perfect. And by practicing those qualities on yourself, you are actually conditioning yourself and practicing those attributes to help you in all areas of your life. If you are able to practice self-compassion on yourself, if you are not perfect on the skateboard or on the ice skating rink or whatever activity you decide to try, you can practice self-compassion better in places that really matter in your life, like at work or in other higher stakes environments. By not being perfect at something and being able to practice not beating yourself up or being mean to yourself, that's going to be super beneficial in all areas of your life. And Karen brought up her example for when she experienced breast cancer and how the reframing that she had done in surfing really helped her to reframe her experience in breast cancer. She was able to look at it as an adventure. And I don't think I would be able to look at it that way if I was her. She totally credits her resilience that she's learned from surfing with helping her move through her breast cancer journey. That's pretty amazing if you think about it. Surfing is the thing that made her feel most alive. And so she wanted to get back to that as soon as possible. And she really thinks that it helped her heal quicker because of it. So the next time you are in a situation where you are not perfect right away, where you feel like, oh, I just suck at this, step back and think about how you can reframe the situation and how you can use this as an opportunity to talk to yourself differently, to be self-compassionate, to be self-loving and self-forgiving.
Number 2, we have an unhealthy relationship to perfectionism in our culture. So there is such an emphasis on doing things right, doing things perfect in our society that I think it's crippling some of us, and it's keeping us from experimenting and trying new things, because there's a message in our society that if you are not perfect at something, you're all going to experience shame. And that's really troubling, and that's really scary to me. And I think by embracing doing something that we're not perfect at, something that we're never going to be a professional or never going to get paid for, it's really flying against the message in our culture that we need to seem perfect, whether that be what we look like on social media, or whether that be what we do in our day-to-day life, and that there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And if we look at life as there's a perfect way and then everything else is wrong, then we're going to miss out on so much. By practicing being sucky at something, we are practicing being messy. We are practicing the nuances of life that are risky or unknown. And that's where the beautiful stuff is, because perfect is boring. What joy is there in any journey if you try something and you're good at it right away? You're never going to experience the highs and lows of a process if you are perfect at something right away. And there's so much goodness in the highs and lows of that whole experience. And one way to have more fun sucking at something is to make it about play. Make it about something that you're enjoying for the sake of it. Make it experiential. Make it fun. You don't need me to explain what fun is. Find something to suck at that you can have the most fun doing. That is play. That is embracing the journey. That is sucking at something. That is saying no way to perfectionism.
Number 3, It is never too late. You're going to hear me repeat this a lot because all I want to do is scream it from the rooftops. We so often decide at whatever arbitrary age we are that it's too late to start doing something. And that's just ridiculous. While you are living on this earth, while you have a body, while you have health, it is never too late. And yes, it may be too late if you are looking to get a specific outcome, but that is not the point. That shouldn't be the point of why you're doing something. You should be doing it because you want to. That's enough of a reason, and that's the only reason that counts. So whether you want to dance, whether you want to sing, surf, whatever it is, go do it, and it's never going to be too late. Karen was 40 years old when she started surfing. She's 58 now. She's not stopping anytime soon. She didn't even want to stop when she had breast cancer. So if it's not too late for her, it's not too late for you. So go do the thing, whatever it is. Stop making excuses, especially the one that you are too old. Thank you again for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to hear more from Karen, go and get her book. It's great to suck at something. You can also find on the show notes her New York Times article that she talked about that went viral, that helped spur her writing this book. I'll also post some other interviews that she's done on other podcasts. And yeah, feel free to check out more of Karen because she's great. I hope you are enjoying this holiday season wherever you are, and that you are getting to spend it with some loved ones, and you're getting time to just be reflective, and that you're giving this time to yourself. So take care, and I will see you next time on The Recess Life. Are you looking for more play in your life? Make sure you're subscribed to the Recess Life podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. You can also find the video interviews on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is so important to me, and it helps others to find the podcast. You can also follow the conversation on Instagram at The Recess Life. And lastly, you can go to therecesslife.com where you'll find all the episodes and show notes on each of our guests. I hope this podcast helps you to become a little more playful today than you were yesterday. Until next time, don't forget to get out and play today.